Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. It's time now to review headlines on today's newspapers with the Ombudsman of This Day and Arise Media Group and This Day Newspaper Limited Group Executive Director, Kayode Komolafe, who is joining us from our Abuja studios. Good morning, Mr. Komolafe.
Good morning, KK.
Good morning, Oji.
Happy Sunday to you.
And good morning, Steve.
It doesn't feel the same without you here in the studio. But let's see what we can do on today's review with you in Abuja there.
I feel so too.
Yes.
Nice to be here this morning.
Well,
all right.
Yeah.
Thank you, KK. So
good morning.
Good morning. So we start the review, the newspaper review with This Day on Sunday. And we'll pick it from top to bottom. From the window, Nigeria to no fate tomorrow, as UK court delivers judgment on P&ID's $11 billion suit. Komolafe urges winners of gas flare commercialization bids to hasten site development. Federal government deploys tiny tankers for crude oil transportation. KK, I think that this is an important story, Nigeria knowing our fate tomorrow, because if it goes against the country, this is a huge sum that Nigeria can hardly afford. Other stories on the cover of today's This Day are below the masthead. Current challenges are temporary, Tinubu tells Nigerians. That's a story that readers will find on page 13 of today's paper. Challenges are temporary, President Tinubu assures Nigerians. And below that story, appeal court not bound by 180 days statute. Atiku replies Tinubu, INEC and APC. Says time limit applies only to election petition tribunals. Insists appellate court, no tribunal entertains dispute from presidential elections. An important position that the Atiku camp is taking on what the INEC law says regarding the termination or the expiration of appeals and petitions that go through the tribunal. Will it be the stated 180 days, or as Atiku is arguing, appeal court will not be bound by that statute? The lead story itself says Senate seeks mandatory electronic transmission of election results. Jega concurs. Lawmakers advocate unbundling of INEC, diaspora voting. Commission's chairman shouldn't be appointed by president, says Jega. That's the former chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Atairu Jega, weighing in on the issue of mandatory electronic transmission of election results. There are some off-season elections in a few days' time, November the 11th, in Imo, in Kogi, and where's the other place again? In that escape. Yes, Imo, Kogi, and Bayelsa.
Bayelsa, sorry.
Bayelsa, yeah.
Exactly. INEC has assured Nigerians that electronic transmission or transfer of election results will be used. And here is former INEC chairman, Jega, also being on the same page, in concurrence with what INEC is saying, how that will affect the perception of some people as regards how the election of earlier this year went. That's something that is still out there. So KK, those are the stories on the cover of This Day today, and let's now wait for your analysis. So KK, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Shall we begin with the lead story of This Day today?
Yeah.
And that is the communique of the retreat of Senate. The retreat was held in Ikorekpene, the home place of the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio. Now, some issues, definitely have arisen from the communique. First, the the call, for electronic transmission of a result, I suppose that, of course, that is actually the job of the Senate. So it's, in a way, it is curious that it's the Senate that is calling for it. If the Senate and the House of Representatives, they feel that there's need to update, the law, I think, the ball is in their court. Rather, it should be the public that should be making the call. But the significant thing, about the seeking is that perhaps if there has been any ambiguity or any doubts, that it's only proper, that the law should be properly updated, such that it will be quite clear, what the process is, and importantly, that what INEC is doing is actually backed by law, or rather, it's actually mandated, by law. Don't forget that last week we reviewed a story, that the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, actually, he assured, the public that the off-season elections in Kogi, in Bayelsa and Imo, that they will all be conducted according to the electoral law. So, and that is why what the Senate, the step perhaps that will be taken by the Senate will be quite important. The other element in that communique, which also should be of interest to the readers of the newspaper, is this, call that the INEC chairman should not be appointed by the president. I dare say that is not a new thing. More than a decade ago, the Waste panel, which was set up by the late president, Umaru Yar'Adua. The Waste panel actually recommended that, amongst other very vital recommendations, which all the presidents, since then, have ignored, to implement. Perhaps what we should be saying actually is that the recommendations of the Waste panel, should be looked at again, and where it is necessary that there should be full implementation. And I think this element of the appointment of INEC chairman is a very crucial one, and that is the philosophy behind it is that not only should INEC, should be an independent body, going by its name, as an independent National Electoral Commission, but it should be seen, both in words and in conduct, to be, truly independent. And if the appointment of the INEC chairman is done in a way that it is independent of any political interest, especially, the power of the executive, I think that will go a long way, to enrich, the electoral process.
Yes.
The other story, on the window is also a very important one, like Steve said, what happens, at the British court, will have implications. But then, whatever the verdict, the point should be made that story of PID is a lesson, for the country. And that is actually a challenge to the Office of the Attorney General, that in terms of documentation, in terms of agreements on behalf of the country, contracts, and that it should be properly done. Because what that thing revealed is that, there was some kind of, there was something, shoddy, and, things were not properly done. And that is why Nigeria found itself, in that position, Because don't forget that, apart from the fine, which was earlier imposed on the country, and which is now being had on appeal, it takes a lot of money for even the country now to even engage in the legal process, and all these are purely avoidable, if things are done properly. If public officers, public institutions, perform their job, And I think this is a challenge for the new Attorney General, the senior advocate Fagbemi, to draw lessons from this. That if the office of the Attorney General had done its work by the time the PID agreement was entered to, perhaps the country will not be in this situation. So all we can say for now is that we hope that the verdict will be in the interest of Nigeria.
All right. Mr. Komolafe, that was well said. Shall we move over to this day's style then? The cover picture there, this day's style, 8 artists are on that cover. Yeah. Yes, we have D'banj, we have Two-Face, we have Don Jazzy, we have Burna Boy. In the center there is Fela Anikulapo Kuti, who launched the modern style of music called Afrobeat. So it's different from Afrobeats. We also have Davido, we have Wizkid, and we also have Temilade Okpeniyi. The cover picture there says, the cover story is Afrobeats, Nigeria's biggest cultural export. Now, the executive editor of This Day's Style, Konya, wrote a great piece there. She says, they say music is a universal language, and few genres have proven this assertion as significantly as Afrobeats. Originating from the heart of Africa, Afrobeats has moved from the bustling streets of Lagos to dominate the world stage, positioning itself as Nigeria's most significant cultural export. Mr. Komolafe, earlier in the day, we had Raymond, I Am Asigwe, and also George I Am Asigwe. They were talking about the AMA Awards, and we highlighted a lot of positives in the entertainment industry. But I must say, there is one person there that I have to speak about, and which is Burna Boy. His genre is not Afrobeats. He describes it as Afrofusion. Recently, he came under fire. He was talking about the fact that there is no substance in Afrobeats. I don't know if you saw that.
Yes, I did.
You did see that.
Yes,
I thought that was quite it was quite controversial for him to have said that at that point.
Well, KK will still come to you very quickly. Yes. But first, I like...
Yes, definitely, yeah.
Yes, I like the fact that the editor of This Day Style, is devoting good space to possibly one of Nigeria's, if not Nigeria's biggest cultural export in recent times. As to the appropriateness of that appellation, Afrobeat, with S, the jury is still out. And it is not only Burna Boy that has an issue with that tag. I think what Burna Boy is saying is that don't pigeonhole me into what the West, how the West wants to describe the type of music that we are making.
Okay.
Burna Boy has a bit of direct connect, possibly much more than many of the other of his contemporaries. A bit of a connect to Afrobeat, Fela's Afrobeat. You know that his grandfather, the great Benson Idonije, was Fela's first manager. So there is a connect to the kind of things that Fela does that that you will see in Burna Boy's music. So when Burna Boy says, my type of music, not genre, is Afrofusion.
Afrofusion.
He is saying that don't pigeonhole me. I do not disagree with Afrobeats as a phenomenon, but a good chunk of what I see these days, who will gladly come out and say, oh, we are part of the Afrobeats movement, that it's a bit of noise. The same way that you will find that argument in Nollywood. And you have had, people like Moabudu. Before her, you have had even TK, even Kunle Afolayan, to an extent, who will say, don't tag me with the Nollywood thing. I'm a Nigerian filmmaker. I agree that we can be identified as Nollywood, but I'm just a filmmaker. So all these tags and appellations and stuff, that's what Burna Boy is saying, don't pigeonhole me. And I think it's an important argument in this sort of subject. So yes, we will have a Kanye, the editor of This Day Style, go with the flow of what the world has come to accept our music as, but then there are many on that cover who do not necessarily identify as Afrobeats musicians. They are just contemporary Nigerian artists. And when they go out there nobody asks what type of music you're playing. You know, it's just a description.
Yes. Steve, while I agree with you, it is unnecessary to, you know, pigeonhole people to certain genres. They can choose whatever genre that they want. But was it necessary for him to have said that, you know, Afrobeats has no substance? I don't know if you watched that interview.
I did.
If you watch it, you will understand the context at which I'm bringing this up.
Oh, yes, I get you.
And I'd like your view on that as well, Mr. Komolafe.
Yeah, I'm afraid I see things differently. You know, I think the first, like I joined both you and Steve, you know, in commending the topicality of this day style today. That the editor has done a good thing, and to me, the significance of it is that this cover of this day style is coming in the season of celebration.
Yes,
yes.
Absolutely.
You're right. The fifth birthday
yes.
of celebration. Whatever latter day controversies you might be having, the point remains that Fela Anikulapo Kuti, you know, created a musical idiom.
Absolutely.
And that is Afrobeat, you know.
Afrobeat.
That's what, you know, Yes. What I'm saying that, I mean, that musical idiom is, you know, was created by, you know, Fela. So I see it more, I see it from the viewpoint of, you know, celebrating, you know, the originality, you know, the creativity, you know, and the social relevance of the art of Fela Anikulapo, you know, who was a Pan-Africanist, you know, and also an African philosopher, you know, in his own right, who, you know, made great impact, not only in the cultural landscape, but also in the politics, you know, and and society, you know, of Nigeria. Now, I think the controversy is healthy, you know. Artists are creative people, you know, and it is normal, you know, for them to be imaginative and, you know, to want to, you know, expand, you know, the frontiers, you know, of the frontiers of their art. So I see it that, you know, that the cover story is actually is in the spirit of the season, which is celebration, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely, KK. Thank you.
Very good package, I must say.
Yeah. And just to add before we move to the next paper, controversy sells.
Yes.
And I think that's part of the brand of Burna Boy. I know that Tiwa Savage, Davido, Wizkid, all do not necessarily describe what they are playing as Afrobeats, even when they do not reject it. That's the subject matter of that important documentary, Afrobeats, the backstory that Shunaya did, which is to say that, you know, you can be known or identified as anything.
Yes.
You know, it is the content of your art form that is important. All right, KK, we move on to Sunday Punch. The lead story says new FCC chair to battle 772 billion naira fraud cases against ex-governors. Others, Olukoyede least focus, says commission must deliver on mandate, go after looters, not only Yahoo boys. Senior lawyers tell anti-graft chief, and I think that's a good a place for Olukoyede to start. As a lawyer, he knows the terrain, is amiable, is, you know, and is showing that he's got focus. So he's got his work cut out for him. Let's see how well he progresses. A few other interesting stories on the cover of the Punch. On the window there, which is quite significant. Hypertensive, diabetic patients. Others cry out as drug prices soar. Income can fund medical bills, foods, others. Those are patients, you know, complaining. A few other ones, cry of the rich. Luxury houses turn to rubble as Lagos demolishes buildings on drainage channels. I think those are essentially around Ikota. The Ministry of Environment in Lagos State has been up and doing, and the people might be complaining, but then did you go against the provisions of the law in erecting structures on the way of the canal? And what the law says is that once that is detected, it must be brought down. Poor funding killing tertiary education, not lecturers strike. That's SANU president. OG, this is almost like a response to our friend from Konwa, who doesn't seem to want to engage in any form of strike.
Absolutely.
KK. Absolutely, KK. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely.
You have the floor, KK.
You're right. Yeah. Now, let's first, take the story of AFCC. I think it is reassuring that from his brilliant appearance at the Senate, during the confirmation of his appointment.
Yes.
The new EFCC chairman, Mr. Kayode, as like Steve said, he has his job, cut out for him. But it's also important that he has also spelled out what will be his own, philosophical approach, to it. So all we can say that while wishing him well, that he should be able to keep, to his words and also to walk, the talk. For instance, it is important that he said, spoke, about the question of media trial, that EFCC will not, embark on that. I think that is quite in order, and that is also in the spirit, of the rule of law, that until a person is found guilty, don't, take him to the court of the media where he's already where he will already be sentenced before even the court trial, begins. Then it's also important that he emphasized, what I would call the structural roots, of corruption that is focused upon, and that if you focus upon that, perhaps not only will you reduce the number of cases that you have to prosecute in court, but that you even prevent, the action from happening. So if there is the focus, on the structural root of corruption, I think it will be, quite in order. Yes, I agree with the SANU president that you don't ignore, the root cause of a disease, and then you focus on the symptom. Strikes in the university are a response, to it. I mean, it's just out of helplessness. Those who go on strike, they go on strike, to make their point. So what the focus should be is that what is the thing that provides the basis for a strike, and you remove it. And I agree with that position that basically that what the crisis, of a public, tertiary education in Nigeria is the crisis of funding. And rather than, demonizing a group, like ASU, being strike or turning the victims, to the culprits, the thing is that this country, has to, focus, and, be resourceful, be creative, in finding the solution to the problem of underfunding, tertiary education in Nigeria.
All right, Mr. Komolafe, I will take one story from The Guardian, which is the lead story, and I'll take two stories from The Wheel. The Guardian newspaper, Nigerians to Tinubu, which is the lead story. Fresh $400 million palliative loan works against pledge for economic recovery. The Guardian says the proposed $400 million loan, coupled with the bloated cabinet, high cost of governance, and the over 160 million naira SUVs for Nigeria's 469 lawmakers are projected to, in no distant time, push Nigeria's debt beyond 100 trillion naira. Meanwhile, the country's crude oil production remains low and the refineries are short. This is a good read. Mr. Komolafe, I'd like for you to highlight that. And then on the cover of the Wheel newspaper, the lead story there, Akpabio, Ndume, others close ranks. The writers read, Senate Chief Whip commends Senate President for retreat initiative. We have no permanent hatred but permanent interest, says Senate President Akpabio. Senate President harbors no ill will towards any senator. Another story there above the masthead, Saraki mark in race for PDP chairmanship. those three stories, Mr. Komolafe, as we begin to wrap?
Yep. I think I cannot agree more with you that the front page of The Guardian, captures what we call the mood of the country in terms of the concerns, being raised, by the public, by Nigerians, as to the economic direction, the policy direction, of the government in the economic realm. I think the important thing will be that the economic team, of the administration, will be wise if they do not ignore these concerns, but to actually pay attention to them and see, those ideas that could be useful, in bringing to the table, the policy mix that will solve, the festering, socio-economic crisis, in the country. The will, yes, yes, captures the politics of the Senate, and I think also is intriguing, really when you remember the emergence of Gospel Akpabio, just few months ago, and the role that Senator Nduma played. But I think that they are members of the same party, and as it is, politicians will play their politics, and they will find a way of resolving it, as time goes on.
All right, KK, let's also look at Sunday Sun very quickly with the last 1 minute that we have, and two stories stand out for me. The lead story, Apapa Oshodi Expressway, anarchy returns, gridlock as tankers, trailers again take over the road. MPA's ATO system truck holding bay collapse. Different issues that obviously require the attention of the Lagos State Governor on the ever problematic Apapa Oshodi Expressway. And on top of that, which is below the masthead, is a story there, KK, that will be of interest to you. November 11 Guba polls. Witches, wizards predict Uzodimma Silva Dino's fate. I understand that the Sun might be interested in, stories that touch the heart.
I'm taking this on what's trending tomorrow.
But I don't know why they are going the way of the witches and the wizards. KK, have they ever predicted elections in Nigeria or anything at all that have come true? And what yami, as the Yorubas will say, they are now getting involved in Nigeria's politics. Just very quickly, in 10 seconds.
I'd like to add to what you have said, Steve, as to the role of the witches and wizards. It's not a new thing that they always have a role to play in our elections. So if you ask me, it's a continuation of a tradition.
Right. They are called the Association of Witches and Wizards.
All right.
Yes. And yeah.
Okay, so we'll see how...
And then, but on the Apapa Oshodi Expressway,
yes,
quickly, just one that it is not just the job of the Lagos State government that, it will be a sad day if you have a return, of the blockade of the road, as we have in Oshodi Apapa road, because that will mean that the combination of the federal government, the Lagos State government, and the Apapa local government, that is 3 tiers of government, must have been defeated, by, this menace, So I think the 3 tiers of government will have to rise to the occasion and prevent, a return of that nightmare, which has, which has lasted for decades, decades. On that road,
Yeah.
It will be very tragic if you have a return of it.
All right, Mr. Komolafe.
Thank you.
On that note, we would like to thank you very much for joining us on our Sunday Tonic program. We had a good time.
Thank you, KK, and enjoy Abuja. All right, that brings us to the end of the morning show today. Thank you for watching, and do stay safe. I'm Steve Ayorinde.
And I am Oji Okwe. From our entire team here in Lagos, Nigeria. Enjoy the rest of your morning, and of course the rest of your day. Goodbye.